to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
I would have never said that snakes molt. I would have never said
I've never heard that.
So because people talk about when snakes shed their skin.
So
that's technically it's molting.
Well, not if that's what you said earlier is true, because technically that's right.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but what's frustrating, right, is that molting is skin or exoskeleton.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's so frustrating because in the discussion about
you have
it,
to say shedding skin.
It says that reptiles, lizards, these arachnids. What are our scorpions? They don't fit in the arachnid, or do they? I can't remember.
Crustaceans.
No, but crustaceans, because crabs also molt. And so it says molting is when crabs or lizards or any other reptiles or arachnids shed their exoskeleton or their skin.
I guess that makes sense because that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you'd have to say shedding their skin. You can't say shedding.
Right.
Because it's confusing.
Yeah, because they're actually molting
and shedding. But you have to say shedding their skin.
And also birds. So when birds, which it feels like birds would be shedding.
But it's not hair.
But it's not hair.
So it's molting?
Birds are also molting when they
But they're
lose
not
their
shedding their
feathers.
skin.
Nope.
Nor are they shedding their feathers.
Or an exoskeleton.
They're just molting.
Yeah, so their feathers are falling out to replace with new feathers.
They're just molting.
Yeah.
Because they're not shedding anything.
And he thought it was just for birds, which is really funny. So I was like, well, we're both smarter now. And I had told him yesterday, I was like, I guarantee you before we go to bed, we will know the answer to this. And
you know the problem with you telling me this kind of stuff is now it becomes truth for me.
Yeah.
So let's say I ran into a situation like you guys were in that conversation, and someone's like, no, that bird's shedding. You would be like, no, let me explain to you why. I'd be like, it's not true. I'm about to shed my skin right here because it's not true, and you're being cocky about something that's not true.
It's molten. As do crabs, as do lizards, as do reptiles, as do arachnids.
And they shed their skin. The birds, they don't shed their feathers. Maybe do they shed their feathers?
Because they're losing feathers.
They're losing their feathers.
But
so
shedding feels a little more like they're pushing away, like you're getting rid of the skin.
It feels like it, yeah, but I don't know. So I think the easier way to do it is if it's hair, you're shedding.
Mm-hmm.
If it's anything else, you're probably molting.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say it, because you're leaving some leeway there.
Yeah.
I like the way that's phrased too, about the individual. Like, okay, is it hair? Okay, don't worry about it. You're shedding. What is it? Oh no, dude, you're molting.
Right? This is how you can tell if someone's an alien or not.
Yeah, there you go. What are you doing over there, man?
Listen, man, I found a lot of my hair on the bathroom floor. Well, look, you're 50. That's pretty normal. You're just shedding. And then they're like, man, I found a lot of my skin on the bathroom floor. Now listen, you might be molting.
I stepped out of my skin last night. Wait a minute, what?
That was Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
What's the TV show? What's the movie where the guy gets really sunburned and he tries to peel his skin carefully off and have a whole skin suit of himself?
No.
I can't remember what it is, but there's a scene in it where he's got it halfway and his arms and his head are dragging behind him.
Considered molting?
By definition.
And he ends up getting it eventually and putting it on like a hanger.
Oh, gosh, dude. That's so bad.
And he starts peeling it and he's like, wait a minute, I could do this whole thing. And he just the whole it's just a really funny scene. And I can't remember for the life of me now what that is. But yeah, I think that's molting.
Yeah.
Molting.
Well, that was fun. Now everybody knows the difference between shedding and molting. What's the next topic today, Ryan?
Hey, the next thing we're going to talk about is this. We have one goal, and that is to glorify God. And it feels a little bit silly to it's not silly, but it feels a little silly to dedicate an entire episode to this because it's literally what we talk about every week.
Mm-hmm.
Every week we talk about that you live for Christ, you honor Christ. This is about Jesus. Every week we talk about the importance of glorifying God. But we all continue to run into people who still want to make it more and more complicated than they need to. So in their marriages, in their raising of their kids. And look, I'm not. Somebody asked me, you know, like, well, what do you do if your kid's failing math, right? Like, there are practical steps we take. We're not ignoring the fact that there are practical steps that need to be taken at times, but like for the believer,
those aren't separate.
No, I don't think so.
I think I think that's part of the problem in the conversation is that people want to make those separate.
Yeah.
When you ask what about, I think what people don't understand is you're negating this original statement.
Yeah.
Your life is about the glory of God.
Always.
So if you want to ask the question, what about, you're saying that there are things in life that shouldn't be about the glory of God.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
I think you could say, all right, I have a kid who's failing at math.
How do I best serve them in this?
Yeah, but it still fits under the umbrella of my life is for the glory of God.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think that people think that this is some kind of like happy-go-lucky what do you call it? Like what's it called? The scene in like
Molting?
the time molting. The time machine where the book or the movie Time Machine where the people up top are living in this luxurious life.
Yeah.
And
I forget the names of the
that's what I
movies.
always picture people think when we say life's for the glory of God. Is that like there's no problems, we're always fed, like everybody's happy. That's not it. It's a perspective shift.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Life's about the glory of God, which means sometimes my kid passes math and sometimes they're struggling through math.
Sure.
And it doesn't change
the way we treat them in that, the way we serve them in that,
Right,
the way that we remind them
I
that
also
their
think
identity is connected to Christ and they're great.
I also think I think a lot of times people think that means we like don't, let's say my kid's failing in math. It's a really bad example for me, because
They're great at it.
my kids are like I ask my kids about math.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
You're failing at math.
That would be more likely, very much more the case than anyways. So but let's say one of them's failing at math because they're being lazy. Glorifying God in that situation is not me going, well, listen, buddy, you can do this. You got this. You know, you need to do it. And it's not, I'm not trying to be a millennial parent here. I'm trying to be like, for the glory of God doesn't mean I don't tell my kid, dude, why the heck are you being so lazy? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I think people think wrongly about this whole perspective of glorifying God. It doesn't mean you like cease to be who you are. I think like, so someone brash like me, it's more likely I'm going to come at a situation like that more intense probably than you two, for example. Well, let's say Pierce. Ryan's like the in-between. You're with daughters. I cannot imagine. I don't know. Maybe you're not going to be that kind of dad. It seems like you do a really good job, Pierce, I think, of like caring for your daughters, but still being kind of like firm. Yeah. But you're less likely to be as brash as me in situations.
Yeah.
So, but I think that me glorifying God in a situation like that doesn't mean I go, how would Pierce handle this?
That's right.
Right? Or you go, how would Micah handle this? We could learn from each other. But it's really, how do I glorify God with my life? Which it informs the situation, but it doesn't mean that there is a right and wrong way of doing this.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for a law inside of the conversation of do life for the glory of God.
All the time.
Absolutely.
Well, and one of the things that I think hinders people from living for the glory of God, or maybe the biggest hindrance from people living for the glory of God, is people don't realize, maybe they do, I don't think people realize how much they put themselves as the center of their universe. So when, and I've said this before, I think in the podcast, but for sure I've said it on Sundays. I've said it on Sunday at some point. I have never had anyone come to me for marriage counseling ever in 31 years and say, listen, we just don't feel like our marriage is glorifying God, and we really want that to be the case. People come and say, I don't like what my spouse is doing. And then the other person says, well, I don't like what they're doing, and you need to fix my spouse. No, you need to fix people don't come to me going, how do I honor God in this? They don't ever. And so I think that's a big part of the problem. And like, this is why marriages are harder than they need to be. This is why raising kids is harder than it needs to be, because almost always our expectation is selfish. Almost always we're so freaking self-centered and egotistical that we want our felt needs to be met. Everybody gets a trophy. What I say is right. How I feel matters more than anything in the universe. And it's like, screw all that. You are lower than Jesus. That shouldn't even be something that we're debating. You're lower than Christ. Live for the glory of Christ. And I told somebody yesterday, we were talking about it a little bit, and I said, because I said, what do you do with other Christians like that every time you're around them, it's just bad. And I said, well, we recognize that they are still loved and forgiven and righteous. If they're truly believers, they're still loved and forgiven and righteous in the eyes of God. They're still just as redeemed as we are. And then we quit having lunch with them. Like you don't have to hang out with them. If every time you hang out with them, you take a beating.
Right.
That living for the glory of God isn't like, well, I'm going to go sit down with them again and I'm going to be insulted for the next hour and be made fun. Like, you don't have to do that. But my view of them as who they are in Christ can't change.
No.
And so I can decide for my own sanity or for the protection of my family that like, I'm not putting myself in that situation anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to keep being in those circumstances, but I don't have to change how I view them through the lens of Christ.
Right.
There's still people that I believe are righteous.
I think you are, this is me saying this, so this is my thought. I think you probably are happier in life when the majority of your time is spent with people who share that common goal of the glory of God.
Okay. I think you need to, all the things you could have been more direct on, I think, more direct.
I can think of examples where that might not be the case.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like.
I'm just trying to, like there's.
I think you're right.
I think that like, let's say there's a spouse who's living in a situation with an unbelieving spouse who is, it's not a good situation. And that's what they're in every day. You know what I mean? I think that it tempers that happiness. But I do think that apart from those like awkward situations, if you are spending the majority of your time with people whose goal it is to honor God with their life, you will find yourself happier. I also think you'll find yourself more wise in dealing with the people who are not in that camp in terms of like two things. One, how do you push them forward to thinking that way if these people are believers, to thinking my life needs to be lived for the glory of God. And two, you're more sensitive to the reality that like I can't be around these people all the time. I think sometimes people think that that's a lack of care for that person, but honestly, sometimes I think that's what those people need.
Yeah,
it's like I'm not going to put up with your crap.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy. Well, I'm happy to like have lunch with you periodically, but I'm not going to be around you all the time.
Yeah.
If that's dragging my world down, like because you're unwilling as a believer, you're unwilling to change your mind.
Yeah.
At least I think practically at some point there needs to be a line where you're like, hey, listen, I'm not cutting you out of my life. I'm just saying like, we're not going to do this consistently because you're just messing my world up.
Yeah. It's interesting because Michelle and I will typically have two responses to us sharing with somebody that your chief aim, and usually it's a couple sitting in front of us, but sometimes it's just an individual. Your chief aim is to glorify God. And we have two responses to that, typically. Again, outliers.
Yeah.
But people will say, oh, okay, that makes it easier. Now I know what I need to do. I don't have to examine every single scenario. I don't have to worry about steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm just going to, to the best of my ability in this situation, honor the Lord. And then we have other people who go, yeah, I hear you, but, and then immediately bring in their ego and their wants and their like.
I would tell them, no, you're the but.
But there are so many people who are. I've used the word like they want to be justified in how they feel. They want to be vindicated in how they feel more than they want to glorify God.
It's just arrogance.
And so where they have, so let's address this for a second, because I think you're right.
You said it earlier. They're the center of their own universe.
Right. But it's arrogance in the sense that, because I don't know. For a long time, when somebody would say arrogant, I would think of like this kid that I knew in middle school that he just was a punk. He just believed he was better than everybody else. I think within the Christian world, arrogance begins the moment you elevate your pleasure over God.
Yeah.
Like anytime, because I think when people say arrogant, they have a picture of a bully or they have a picture of you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The moment you value your perspective over the perspective of God, that is arrogance. It is you putting yourself above the God of the universe. And it's a higher arrogance than that stupid guy was in middle school, who was just, he was smart, he was strong, he was golly, we still
You're
did.
thinking of someone specific.
Oh yeah, I am.
Like there's an obvious emotional tie to what
Yeah.
you're saying here.
No, for sure. Like, and I don't know where all this goes, so I'm not going to say his name here, but I will say that some of my bullies had names that you would think, oh, that's just a movie name, because like it fit like the bully, like. But I remember in 6th grade still having to do the presidential fitness exam, or whatever they called it, what was it called? Anyway, you remember doing that?
I wasn't. You did that in the 70s. I didn't graduate until the 90s.
So there was the presidential fitness thing that you had to do every year.
I did it too. I guess it skipped you.
No, it was affirmative action. They didn't make minorities do it.
That's what Micah, you're staying inside today. What?
He's brown. But you'd have to run a mile. You'd have to do how many push-ups you could do. You'd have to do how many pull-ups you could do, how many sit-ups you could do, all that kind of stuff. Well, this guy's name was Johnny.
I probably don't remember it because it was fun days
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, let's go.
I couldn't, in 6th grade, couldn't do a single pull-up.
Yeah.
And Johnny was his first name. Johnny gets over there and knocks out, 6th grade, knocks out, I think it was 14.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, that's
Wow.
like,
That's a lot of pull-ups.
it's a lot of pull-ups. Like, people are like, 14, that's not that many. Go do 14 pull-ups right now.
Although,
pause this.
side note, at that age, it's funny. It's usually the girls who can knock out.
I know.
Like they're just like 50 pull-ups, like nothing.
No.
Because a lot of them are doing like gymnastics and stuff.
And
like that.
they may have, but our boys and girls,
Separate, yeah,
were
and they
separate.
also like weigh nothing at that point, and it's just like I
Yeah.
remember the girls like just demolishing the guys. In
Yeah.
pull-ups back then.
But like, yeah, we kind of think of arrogant like that. Like he's just a bully, he's just mean. But in the Christian
He did
world,
more pull-ups than me.
yeah. Well, he let me know he could, because I couldn't do any. I got made fun of a lot for that. But now I'm up to 2. So
Nice.
suck it, Johnny.
He's probably fat sitting on a couch somewhere, like bag of potato chips.
But yeah, for the Christian, the moment you choose your pleasure, your will, your self-justification, your own ego above what glorifies God, that's arrogance.
Yep.
I'm actually okay with changing the word for now. I think it is arrogance, but I think maybe it's like instead of trying to define
Biblically, it's called pride.
I just think like, let's say it more like in your face.
Okay.
The moment that your pleasure becomes forefront, you've said, God, screw you, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Call it whatever you want. Whatever that is, that's what you're saying to God.
Yeah.
Paul says in Philippians 3, once I recognized how good Jesus is, I realized how everything else is worthless.
Yeah.
That if that's the perspective, like why would you trade something that has more value than anything else for something that has little value?
Yeah.
You're saying, what you're in essence saying is, I actually think the stuff that has little value has more value than the thing that has eternal value. There's no other way to say that. Call it arrogance, call it, I mean, there's a ton of other words I want to use that I probably shouldn't use here, but like, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And I don't think people realize this. When your perspective of life is that your contentment is based on your circumstances, I'm not saying happiness. When your contentment is based on your circumstances, you have elevated you over Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's no other way to say that.
No. Yeah. And it's people do. They put their happiness, their contentment, their comfort above the glorification of God.
I think that you can make a case that there's like, it's probably a debatable thing biblically, but like, in the Psalms, like there's this connection between the word blessed or blessed and happy, like fully happy. And I think that might be different than what Paul is saying in like, Philippians 4, when he says, I've learned how to be content in all things, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I think those might be 2 different concepts. So I think when someone says happy, I think you could be content in Jesus and not be happy in your circumstance.
Yeah.
I think you could have a family member, somebody close that dies, and you're not happy in that moment, but you're still content in Jesus.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
All your confidence is still resting in God.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the number of times that people will say something to me like, I don't know. I'll put it this way. And I said this from the pulpit a few months ago. I said, some of you just need
You have
to
a pulpit?
or the stage. I don't know. what should I say? I said this.
Oh, it just hit me. You said that. I was like, I think it's kind of funny you said that.
That is funny.
Next thing you know, he's going to be like, man, we were meeting in the fellowship hall. And
Yeah, that's old school. I'm just coming back up. But I said it while preaching. There we go. A couple of months ago.
I'm going to get you a pulpit now just to be truthful about this.
No.
But you're going to show up one Sunday and I'm going to have the most gaudy, awful.
I have to hide behind it the whole time.
With one of those microphones, like,
There you go.
Oh, yeah. But I made the point a few months ago that some Christians need to quit giving their Christian friends advice, because some Christians don't have the view of, I want to glorify God. So when their friends come to them in a difficult situation, they're not saying to their fellow Christian friend who's in a bad situation, listen, you need to glorify God in this.
Right.
They're saying, they're getting emotional and they're saying, I can't believe they did that to you. You should, blah, 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 and get yours. And if they did that to you, I'd do it back to them. And like, there are Christians who are advising other Christians to be terrible people rather than glorify God. Christians, if your friend is in a bad situation that's untenable, you can't continue in it, you say, listen, get yourself to safety, remove yourself from this circumstance, but your job is to glorify God.
Yeah.
That's how the counsel still needs to be. Like everything we do, I think.
I wonder if that's the struggle with making it a law.
Okay.
If it's my job to glorify God,
okay, yeah,
the implication is that there's another way to go. It needs to be a reminder. Your life is about the glory of God.
That's
so
all it is.
Let that inform your decision making.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of saying like, now that this situation has happened, remember your job is to glorify God, as if it wasn't your job to glorify God before the situation got bad.
Well, we talked about that a few weeks ago, right? That what was the topic? I'm trying to see. Let's see. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was last week. But what we do, if we understand as followers of Jesus, and I don't understand how, I think it's just that we don't get the fullness of what we've been saved from, what we've been saved to.
Yep.
Because I don't see a possibility where, if you understand the riches of salvation, I don't see a possibility where you want to do anything other than glorify Jesus.
Right.
Like when you realize how fully you've been saved, how the totality of your redemption, that you have been moved from an enemy of the God of heaven into the fellowship with the God of heaven, that you now have confidence to stand in the presence of the Lord, right? We can come before him with our petitions, with our requests. We can come to him with confidence and boldness. We can lay down our hurts, our wants, our desires, everything at the feet of God, and we are declared righteous. When you see that, how are you wanting to do anything but glorify God? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I'm wondering if.
So the question is, maybe they haven't seen that.
They don't understand the depth of it.
Now, here's what I mean. I wonder if at least the environment us three grew up in, a lot of times how we heard the gospel was, put your faith in Jesus so you don't go to hell. And I don't think that means that people who heard the message of the gospel in that way haven't authentically put faith in Jesus.
Sure.
I think that we know from the scriptures that the power of the gospel, understanding of the gospel, comes by the Spirit.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not saying that some joker couldn't get up on stage somewhere behind a pulpit and preach, if you don't want to go to hell, put your faith in Jesus. And in that moment, the Spirit's giving understanding to someone. You understand what I'm saying? But I think that the way that it's preached could also inform how you think about it, which we've seen. We've seen that in people who put their faith in Jesus under a certain theological bend, and then if that theological bend is ever challenged, they feel like it negates the salvation that they have. So I wonder if there are people who because they were in an environment where when they heard the gospel was preached from some moralistic or law perspective, but somehow they understood the gospel by the power of the Spirit, put their faith in Jesus, but their mindset is still, in a sense, like how well I do.
Sure.
So which Paul calls the flesh, if my mindset as a Christian is God's perspective of me is based on how well I do, of course I'm going to struggle.
Yeah.
Because as Paul says in Galatians, how is it that you who have begun by the Spirit are now trying to be perfected by works of the flesh? If you are, as he says in chapter 4 and chapter 5, if you are submitting yourself again to slavery, then the expectation is that you're going to feel like a slave.
Yeah.
Because the moment you realize and see, oh crap, I used to be dead, now I'm alive. I used to be living in darkness, now I'm a child of light.
Yep.
I used to be an enemy of God, as you said. Now I'm called his heir with an inheritance. Like, what can the world do to me? You're going to be like the apostles in Acts 5 who are beaten and they walk away rejoicing.
Right.
And you're complaining about what?
Yeah.
Right. And Paul, in Philippians 4, he's like, he's been stoned, he's been beaten, he's been imprisoned unjustly, he's been floating in the ocean for a day and a half. All these crazy things have happened, and you don't hear Paul going,
I know, woe is me.
And I don't ever do this, but sometimes I want to do that. I hear people talking and I want to be like, I'm not trying to like play down the circumstances. What I'm trying to say is, like, I think your perspective of your circumstances is from the wrong perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not saying circumstances don't suck.
Right.
We've all been through them.
Sure.
And we will continue. There will be more sorrow in our lives. There will be more times where, like, crazy things happen, even if it's not that big, even if it's like someone shared with me Sunday. I just come off stage from leading worship. A guy I know from high school has been coming to the church, and he just gave me a hug. He goes, I really needed that last song. He said, I got laid off on Friday. It's going to happen, right? Not laid off necessarily. I'm just saying, like, circumstances like that are going to happen. The question is not how do you feel in the moment, but does that divert you from the goal of glorifying God with your life? Or is that goal that you say you have of glorifying God with your life based on how well circumstances are going?
Right.
Yeah.
And that, to me, shows that it's not actually a heart to glorify God.
Yeah. The people who are really happy to glorify God when everything's right in their life are people who are not actually glorifying God. They're content in their circumstances, so they feel like, it's we're a couple of weeks into a mini series we're doing at church on the suffering Christian and what our perspective of suffering is supposed to look like. And we started that first sermon of that series was about how Christ went to the cross, suffered at the cross as an example to us of how we also would suffer. So that we would look to him going to the cross as an example in our obedience to God. Like, that we want to glorify God to the point of death, even death on the cross. Like, in the same way.
And it's in addition to that, I think what people miss too is I feel like, tell me if you think this is wrong, I feel like that has always been with the purpose that we are the same proclaimers of Jesus as the Messiah as he was. So, like, when in Acts 4, when the council, like, I think they arrest them, and it says that they perceived that they were common, uneducated men, and they recognized that they had been with Jesus. So the implication is there was something about them, about these apostles, that was evidence that they had spent time with Jesus. And I think that, like, suffering with Jesus in the same way Jesus suffered is not even just about us saying, like, we're going to follow the example of Jesus, but it's for a bigger goal. It's to say we're proclaiming Jesus as the Messiah because we're associating with him. And he's the proclamation of himself as the Messiah. So it's the same thing. Like, as we suffer, we are proclaimers of the gospel.
Right. Yeah. And it's so interesting because one of my favorite texts, Philippians 2, where it says, have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God a thing to be chased after, but made himself nothing and became a servant, became obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. So have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus, that you would be obedient to God. Christ going to the cross was his obedience to God for the glory of the Father. He says that in John 12. Father, glorify your name. And speaking about the cross. And he says, I've glorified it and I'll glorify it again. He says it in John chapter 17, the night he's arrested as he's praying. He says, Father, glorify the Son that you might be glorified. And he's talking about the cross that he's about to go to. In Hebrews chapter 12, it says, look to Christ on the cross so that you won't grow faint-hearted in your suffering. In Hebrews chapter 13, it says, let us go outside the camp like Christ was taken outside the camp and bear the same curse and the same reproach that he bore. In 1 Peter chapter 4, it says that Christ suffered on the cross, setting us an example that we also would suffer and be done with sin. And so the cross is the pinnacle of our suffering for the glory of God. And we Christians, we want everything to be, what was it you said earlier? Like happy-go-lucky. We want everything to be so happy-go-lucky that the moment that we get a splinter, forget the cross, forget dying. The moment something inconveniences us, we're done with trying to glorify God. We're saying this is really unfair. Like I made this point because it's just an image that I can't quite shake from my head. It's something I thought about a couple of months ago and then used at the beginning of this series on suffering was we don't tolerate the splinter well. How do we expect to glorify God with the cross? Like we don't tolerate the small thing. A few weeks ago, the boys had a tennis tournament, and Michelle and I had the camping chairs in the back of the car, and we got there and we set them out. And one of those really hard stickers was in the camping chair, so I went to get it and throw it in the trash. And you pick it up and it like sticks in your finger, so you're trying to get it out, but then you accidentally kind of stab your finger a little bit more. So I got it out and threw it away. My finger. The next morning, I woke up. And I was like, why does my finger hurt so badly?
Because you live in West Texas.
Because I had this little tiny piece of that.
For all the people that don't live in West Texas that are listening, our stickers are like your thorns.
Yeah.
I had one the other day next to my shoe rack, and I was about to put my socks on, and I like put one sock on, and I don't know why I stand up when I do this. Like, can't I just go sit down and do it? But I don't. I stand up and I put my socks on. I think
that's good. You have more balance.
I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm not getting old. Like,
yeah. No, I like it. I
put one sock on, but then I like kind of started falling a little bit. So I put my foot down. Well, I slammed it on like a giant sticker. And I was like,
whimpering.
Cammie goes, did you break your femur? Like, and then I come in with this like tiny little thorn. But I think that's an example, right? Of like, this is what we do. Is like, I acted like in my head, I'm like
a broken,
like a bear's ripping my foot off. That's kind of what it felt like, but I don't know what that feels like. But
that's exactly what it's like.
But we're not negating that hurts.
Right.
What we're saying is like, if that's how you act, if you're going to scream like your femur's broken when you step on a sticker, what's it like when it's something significant?
Right.
Yeah. And what you see, your point, Ryan, is what you see across the New Testament with the followers of Jesus is that their perspective was so clearly set on Jesus that the circumstances almost had the opposite effect. That when, and I want to give a scenario here. I think that the situations you see in the New Testament are people suffering for the sake of Jesus.
Yep.
I don't think this is like just losing a loved one. I don't think this is losing your job. I don't think this is, financial struggles, although some of those, the majority of the time, that's self-inflicted anyways. But anyways, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's suffering for the sake of being a follower of Jesus. How they respond to those situations is drastically different than screaming like you just broke your femur from a little sticker.
Yeah.
It is almost like do your best to persecute me because I'm not moving. It is, this is not a great correlation, but it is Mel Gibson at the end of Braveheart when they're like ripping to shreds. And I think though the emotion of that I like, because this is similar to the apostles being beaten in Acts 5 and then leaving rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer for the glory of Jesus for the sake of the name is what it says. And I think that's something I don't see often.
No,
I don't. And I think here's my take. I think if that was actually your perspective of life in general, what the apostles had, that you would be counted worthy to suffer for the sake of the name, I have a feeling that informs how you act when the small things happen.
Yes. Well, and here's the other thing. Like one of the sermons that I did for the suffering Christian is 2 Corinthians 1, where 10 times Paul talks about comfort in the space of 5 verses. He mentions it 10 times. And he says, we were comforted in our affliction so that we could be a comfort to you. Right. And he gives, people can land in a different count than this. I see 3 takeaways that I really like. You might say 2, you might say more, whatever, but I see
2.5.
Yeah. So he says, we were comforted by God in our affliction so that we could comfort you in your affliction. So Paul's saying that part of the benefit of his affliction, his personal affliction, was feeling the comfort of God so that he would be able to help provide that comfort to other people. 2, which you can't have, by the way, without affliction.
Sure.
Right. You can't experience the comfort of God without affliction. 2, he says, our comfort was for your salvation, which I've always found to be a really interesting statement that Paul, and he goes into a little bit of detail in this later in 2 Corinthians, talking about how he and the other teachers were afflicted, but not crushed. We were perplexed, but not in despair, always caring about in our bodies, the death of Christ so that we could give you life, right? So his view is, in part, the affliction that I bore was to show you who Jesus was.
Mhm.
And I wonder, what would our lives be like if our perspective was, okay, I'm suffering. My loved one just died. This thing just happened. I want to conduct myself in such a way that the people around me can see what it means to follow Jesus, for their salvation.
Right.
And then the third thing that Paul says in that opening chapter is, he says, I despaired of life. When I was in Asia, he goes, I despaired of life. I believed I had received the sentence of death.
Mhm.
This was so that I would no longer rely on myself, but rely on God who raises the dead. So Paul's view of his affliction is, I've been comforted by God, so now I know how to comfort you. I was afflicted so that you could know Jesus, and I was afflicted so that I would rely on Jesus.
Mhm.
And then you go over to James,
Mhm.
right? Consider it pure joy, my brethren, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish this work, making you mature and complete, not lacking anything. So there's a little bit of us that if we're discontent in difficult circumstances, there's a little piece of you going, I'm not interested in being whole or complete.
Right.
because it's the testing of your faith that purifies you. It's the removal of the dross.
I mean,
Yeah.
this literally is, that perspective literally is working out.
Yeah.
If you don't work out, you don't get the,
100%,
if you don't
yep.
break down the muscle, you don't get the benefit of the muscle growth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can't sit on the couch with potato chips and expect to be ripped
Right. And then wonder why your body's not responding the way it should.
and
Mhm.
complain about being sick. And,
Yeah. And so,
I mean, I'm not, obviously, I'm not super concerned about like healthy eating, although I don't eat terrible.
No.
But I still drink Dr. Pepper, so I don't know what that says.
not
But
as much.
no,
not
not
nearly
as,
as much.
I think I drink less. I think I've always had less Dr. Pepper than people think I do.
Yeah.
So I've never been one of those people who just drinks Dr. Pepper all the time. But
Mhm.
I understand. The best shape I've ever been in was since playing soccer. I think through my sophomore year of college was that year I was riding 40 to 50 miles a week on a
Tons.
mountain bike.
Yeah.
Which sadly for you, I think that was about the time we did that fitness challenge
Mhm.
for the church. So it's like you were running all the time. I'd never trained for that at all.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm
but
still mad about that because 1 second, there was this 30-second window.
it's almost like I knew.
I know. I finished anyway.
I did the least amount of effort possible to get the same score. Anyways,
Yeah.
but that fitness that year, that didn't happen because I just decided I was gonna be fit. It probably took 2 years of riding my mountain bike to get to a place where I could ride. I was literally riding. My rides were all out rides for an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Riding hard for an
Yeah.
hour and 10
No,
minutes,
you were
which
doing a lot.
was probably pushing my body too hard, at that point.
Mm.
But if I really, really, really wanted to start racing,
Yeah.
I would have had to stop drinking Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I was making that choice. And I think that's what people miss is a lot of times people are complaining about their life circumstances because of the choices they've made.
Yeah.
And I think what Paul's saying there, which I think 3 is fantastic. I would have gone with 2.5, but I think 3 is great.
Cool.
But I think his perspective seems to be all these circumstances is helping shape either the ministry I'm doing with you or who I am in Christ
Shape me.
and how I am trusting in God. I always think when I read that passage about him despairing of life itself, I always think about the story you tell about how sick you were in India.
Oh, yeah.
And that's always, I don't know what he means, but I think it's something probably like that would be my guess is
Mhm.
I was
something
so sick.
something happened where he was just I had pneumonia one time after coming back. I think I did 9 camps that summer, got sick, got pneumonia. I remember laying in bed one day being like, God, you can just take me. I can just,
Yeah.
I'm happy to just go because I was so sick. I kind of get that feeling.
Yeah.
That's probably what he means if I despaired of life itself. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go. But how many of us take the perspective that that's so that I can trust in God
Mhm.
and rely on him and not
He's
me?
taking everything else away from me so that I'll trust in the Lord.
When was the last time I'm asking people that are listening, you were so sick and despaired of life and your perspective was, I think God's teaching me to trust him more.
Yeah. No, people don't get there. And you look at even God giving people, let's just think about this. God giving people the manna in the wilderness for 40 years. He tells them in Deuteronomy, he says, the reason I gave you manna was to test you to see whether or not you would trust me. so that you would know that man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Now, what he means by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God in that specific case is, I got you.
Yep.
I'm going to provide for you
Yep.
until you get into the promised land. I'm feeding you every day.
And this really is a gospel presentation.
Will you believe me?
Right.
Will you believe me? And they don't.
Nope.
And they whine and they complain and they're bitter about it because within months, not 40 years, within months, they're saying, we hate this manna. We hate the provision of God.
Send us back to Egypt.
Yeah. Let's go back where we had better stuff.
Which is funny. I've always thought it's funny from the Galatians perspective that the nation of Israel wanted to return again to the yoke of slavery.
I know. That's what they keep wanting to go back to, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because forget like people dying or whatever. You're in a job you don't like. It's paying the bills. You're making ends meet, which never mind. But you're making ends meet. Your food's on the table, and it's not what you want it to be. That's your manna. Do you have what you need for the day? Like, where's your trust?
Yes.
Where's your confidence? So work that crappy job and glorify God in it.
And I think you flip it too. So you're someone who has a lot. Like your job provides an income more than what you need. Where does your trust lie?
Yeah,
Exactly.
glorify God with that. And
This is later in Acts when someone sells a field and lays it at the apostles' feet to meet the needs of the saints. Like it's
Barnabas. Yeah, we see people on both ends of the spectrum. Those who don't feel like they have enough and maybe don't have enough and they don't want to trust God. And then we see people who have an excessive amount and they don't want to trust God because glorify God in whatever circumstance you're in, glorify God. And that's the thing that I think we don't want. We want to glorify God on sunny days when we're well fed and we have everything we want. We want to be free from slavery in Egypt, but have the food that we had in Egypt and not have to walk through the wilderness. And we don't want to we want it to be according to our personal perspective and desires and plans rather than listen, Jesus set aside, I don't know what this means, but he says in John 17, restore to me the glory I had with you before the foundation of the world. Jesus sets aside some of his glory to be found. I love how it says this in Philippians, to be made nothing. And then the next sentence is to be found in the likeness of a man.
Right.
nothing.
Nothing.
That's nothing. And he made himself nothing for the glory of the Father. And it's so weird because in the human heart, we want to be something to glorify the Father.
Right.
That's a great way to say it. Because God's perspective of us as man is that we're nothing.
Yeah.
Apart from him.
Yeah. We want to be big. Like if I can just, I've had people, friends say, if I can just grow this ministry, then I can really glorify God in this. Or if I can just do this, then like that's your ego. Glorify God in the thing you're in right now.
Yeah.
As if a worldly measure of success is something we can lay over ministry or life success.
As if what we did when we were pastoring 20 people for years, as if that was pointless.
Right.
No, glorify God in that.
Be faithful to, everybody's in different life circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, I also think people, instead of putting their eyes on Jesus, well, let's say like the writer of Hebrews says it, instead of fixing their eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of their faith, I think they fix their eyes on other people. And it's always the comparison.
Yep.
And I think that it is an example of how you are not content in Jesus. And I mean, being honest, I think you could even take it to like small things that I don't think necessarily implies discontentment, but I think is a good check. So for example, like I played a golf tournament for raising money for Mighty Waters a few weeks ago. And I was telling the guys on my car, like Steven Yarbrough has the irons I should have bought, the golf irons I should have bought. I bought the wrong ones. Mine are great, but the ones I really want are the ones he has. So how is there not a part of me as I'm playing and watching him like smoke these irons? I'm like, I want those irons, right? And I will probably get those irons eventually. But small things like that, like if that rules my mind, if that's like all I think about, that's probably showing that I'm finding some contentment in something that's not Jesus. Right. There's nothing wrong with me wanting those irons or even pursuing those irons or even getting those irons, but I think it's a good check because it's meaningless. It's benign. It like, doesn't change my life. It's a good check for me. Like, am I actually discontent
Yeah.
because I don't have the right irons? Because what that's showing is that my contentment isn't Jesus.
Right.
Or is my
Isn't-
contentment in
yeah.
Jesus? And I'm like, dude, I would love to have those irons, but it's
Sure.
not something that like rules my life.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's contentment. We're gonna talk about this in a couple of weeks because I saw a really stupid clip the other day that I was just like, golly. But we're going to talk about in 1 Timothy 4 how Paul says godliness with contentment is of great gain. He says bodily discipline is of little value, but godliness with contentment is of a great gain. And we're going to talk about that text in 1 Timothy 4 in a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks from now. But it's just like, yeah, pursue things. Like it's okay to pursue things, but everything we do ought to be done through the lens and the perspective of I want to glorify God in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually think people would have more fun in life if that's their perspective.
Heck yeah.
A few weeks ago, I was talking to Ted and Jen Otero at church, and Jen was asking about some of the disc golf ministry stuff, and she goes, because I've been playing golf with Ted and some other guys, and she goes, "You got a disc golf ministry?" She goes, "When are we doing a golf ministry?" And I told her, I was like, it's actually coming. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's because it's something that I'm doing now. And my perspective is I'm going to glorify Jesus with my life. And it is in my wheelhouse. Why would I not do that? And I think a lot of people go, no. Something like golf needs to be like just the extracurricular.
Sure.
Well, how about it's something you enjoy that you use for the glory of Jesus?
Sure.
Like, why can't it be that? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that people have the wrong perspective. They think that you can't have fun in Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's stupid. That is an arrogant perspective, I think, because you're saying that we're more fun than he is.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's not, that Jesus isn't actually enjoyable, that there's not pleasure in God.
Or he doesn't care. He doesn't care about enjoyable time. He doesn't care about my family vacation. He doesn't care about golf or disc golf. He doesn't care about.
Yeah.
It's people wanting to like piecemeal life instead of saying my entire life is lived for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Like
sometimes I'm on the golf course.
Yeah.
My entire life is lived for the glory of God. Sometimes I'm on the lake with my family.
Right. I've always been an athlete. I will probably always I hate sitting on the couch.
I know. I'm super excited that you said you're going to start jujitsu with us.
Ugh, gross, dude. Gross. I prefer my sports without men laying on top of me. It's not my favorite thing to do. Sorry, Matt Johnson and all my buddies at the 456. I know it's like a really good workout and it's fun. And I wouldn't, like, I think I know I would love it if I did it, but I wouldn't want to, it would hinder all the other things I'm already doing.
Yeah.
Like if my elbows and shoulders hurt.
You need to come do the 3 trial classes.
No.
Just so you can be like, yeah.
No, because I know me. What's more than 100%? That's what I go in. And the reason I didn't play golf for a long time is because I know what happens. Like the reason I like haven't tried to pick up other stuff is because I know what happens. I don't just go in like partially. You know what I mean? It's like I'm gonna win. Every single time I will win. And then I will start beating people from the church at jujitsu, and then everybody will be pissed at me. I'm not doing it. Stacy's like, you can't beat me, but my arms are bigger, so I could beat Stacy.
You could, man, easily.
Now, for real though, like I do think that that's people's perspective is they want a piecemeal life, and like I have a fun part of life that's not Jesus, and then I have the Jesus stuff. Yep. And I think that I know everybody says it's too simple.
You cannot compartmentalize and also live for the glory of God.
No, your life is either live for you or it's live for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think people understand that. Like when you're trying to compartmentalize it, you're basically saying my life's about me.
Yeah, because if you're assigning a certain place, Jesus only fits in this part of my life.
Right.
You're not honoring him as king.
Nope.
No.
I think it's Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
I know it's a different context of it's about food, but it's
about the law.
Not Colossians 3. I'm just saying like,
yeah,
that one actually fits because I think it's like more all inclusive. I was going to say it was preface for the 1 Corinthians passage.
Oh yeah.
Is it 12 or 11 or no?
1 Corinthians 10:31.
10. Just getting there.
Just is it 12? Is it 11? Is it 10?
Whether you eat or drink, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Like he kind of brings it all together, but it's specifically about food there. But it's this mindset of like everything I do is for the glory of God.
Yeah.
The people who say that's too simple, I would say to you, you're too simple.
That's right.
Because that's not too simple. It is the essence of the life we have in Christ now.
Right.
And if you think that that's too simple, what you're saying is there's something better. And I would love for you to explain to me what is better than Jesus. So come on, bring it to me. Actually, put it in the comments because I'll never see it.
That's right.
Pierce will tell me about it later. But like, that's what you're saying. You're saying there's something better than Jesus.
Yeah.
If that's too simple, there's something better than Jesus.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me how many people have said that to us through the years. You're making it too simple. And I wonder, why is that offensive? Like, why is it so offensive that it's simple?
I think people, and I think it's still a lie of the enemy. I think people view a life for Jesus has to be like kind of what you were saying earlier of like, you're not allowed to have fun in Jesus. Like if you're going to glorify God, it has to look this very structured way. I've seen more and more posts recently about a lot of people converting to Catholicism or to Orthodoxy, and a consistent trend in those posts is, man, look at this Protestant church, how it feels like a concert. There's no reverence there. There has to be reverence in following Jesus. So people think that to follow Jesus, it has to look like a very strict, structured way.
It's somebody else's definition of reverence.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like that's the issue, is that people are arguing about surface level stuff instead of going to the heart and talking about how there can be situations where we go somewhere where there's just an organ player and we're just doing old school hymns, and we can worship with the same heart and intensity as we can going to a contemporary place. Now, one might be a preference of vibe, but like I can worship the Lord proclaiming these songs as long as they're truth about who Christ is.
I just wonder, like, do those jokers ever read the Psalms?
Dude. No, they don't read the Bible.
Like, rejoice in the Lord with singing and dancing with the clanging of cymbals and like, you freaking idiots. How reverent is it to say that these? You know what's consistent amongst Roman Catholic churches and most all Orthodox churches that I am aware of, churches that I'm aware of, sorry, is that they proclaim works-based salvation. How reverent is that?
Yep. But and I think that's what flows into like you're saying it too simple. Like I have to honor God. I have to be reverent. Reverence means this, and this means this, and like then you get to all of these things that are created by a human type of logic of what it means to be. And I think be good or reverent or whatever.
You're right. It's a lie of the enemy.
100%.
And you're a booger bear if you believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think to convolute the beauty of the gospel of we who were once, like you said earlier, Micah, like we who were once dead are now made alive, and our life is rooted in Christ. And so therefore the only natural thing is that we're going to live out our life in Jesus, right? So if you have life by the Spirit, keep in step with the Spirit, live by the Spirit, walk by the Spirit. So like, it's just a pure logical thing that ties into it. And now in the life that I have, we are now empowered to glorify God with that life. And since he is our life source, like that's where we find our greatest pleasure and our greatest joy and all of who we are. So like, why are we trying to live? I did this with the youth a few weeks back or I guess over a month now with core weekend of like, stop trying to be who you're not. Like, stop trying to be a poser. Like, embrace who you are in Christ and live that out. Like the moment you put faith in Jesus, there was a full transformative state that happened where you went from death to life. And in the midst of that, now that you are changed, we can live in freedom. We can live in grace. We can do the works that God set out before us to do for his glory, right? May it be with our families, with our friends, on the golf course, or singing songs, where it be in some situations or the other, the heart can be the same to glorify the Lord. Because that is where our life is all foundational, right? It's all of just who we are in him. Everything that we're going to do, our desire now is to glorify him. And then in the midst of when we're not, or there's the tension of our mindset maybe not being fixated on him, we have the Holy Spirit to bring about that tension and to guide us towards him, right? So
empowered is a good way to say it.
Empowered, 100%. Yeah. So
I think people let their preferences step in the forefront of this conversation. They'll say like, my preference, I was thinking about this when you talked about like you didn't say it, but like people would say piety. That's what they mean by reverence in terms of worship. They let their preference of style of worship dictate their perspective of life. Look at you people who don't worship in this way because it's my preference. Therefore, you are not honoring God with your life. And I've got a lot of gestures and adjectives for you. And I would say that is the same arrogance as someone who says, someone who screams like their femur's broken when they step on a sticker. It's the same arrogance of life. When you're saying my preferences are in the forefront.
Right. Because it has to be, they're following some model that's extra biblical.
I think Pierce is right. Bible. It literally is the lie of the enemy. It is diverting people. This isn't the antithesis of Jesus on face value. Like, this isn't the church of Satan. This isn't like someone going, I'm worshiping. I'm offering my children in the fire to Molech. Like
Right.
literally, this is always a lie of the enemy where he just changes the truth a little bit, where people go, oh,
Mhm.
you know, I'm gonna believe this lie, but they don't know it's a lie because it looks so close to the
Sure.
truth.
Mhm.
That's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Is people are flocking to that. I'm not freaking out by it about this
Mhm.
because it's always been the case.
Oh, absolutely.
People have always flocked to the lie of the enemy. I mean, John
Mhm.
10, Jesus says, there have been false shepherds who come before me. You've
Yep.
believed all of them. The nation of Israel has always believed the false shepherds.
Mhm.
Yep.
They've never believed in Jesus.
Yep.
And I think as a whole, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's what you see in the story of the scripture. They will someday. Like there
Yeah.
will be a coming when you see Israel putting their faith in Jesus, you'll know, like, all right,
Yeah.
the end is near.
Mhm.
But I think that's what's happening. I'm not bothered by it
No.
because it's always been the case. I will continue to proclaim the gospel.
Mhm.
And my friends who are in that camp of moving that way, more towards the orthodoxy, that kind of stuff, I'm going to continue to proclaim the gospel.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying there aren't believers in
Right.
the Orthodox Church or the Roman Catholic Church. I'm just saying, like, if you adhere to the doctrines of salvation those churches teach, then you haven't believed in Jesus.
Absolutely.
Because they say that faith in Jesus is not enough.
Mhm.
It's still something you have to do on the back end.
Yep.
Which there's not anything I'll be more fiery about than that
Right.
conversation.
No, because that's a lie about salvation.
Exactly.
I have zero filters for that.
Mhm.
Zero. What's less than zero? It's not
Well,
even
there's a whole there's a whole number line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
There's infinite number of numbers that are less than zero.
Cammy and I were talking about this the other day about how it's funny that everybody thinks they'll be like, why was Micah mad?
Yeah.
And Cammy, you guys are like, Micah wasn't mad.
Yeah.
He was just like intense. But like,
Yeah.
if you ever see me mad, you'll know there's a drastic difference. And I can only think of times I've been mad have been times about the gospel.
Yeah.
When someone's proclaiming a false gospel,
Absolutely.
it literally feels like Jeremiah. There's a fire inside of me that
Yeah.
I should shut up in my bones and I'm weary of holding it in, and I
Yep.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't, Jeremiah. I'm not depressed like you. It's just coming out.
Yep.
Oh man. Yeah. You have a simpler view for us, Micah?
Yeah, live life for the glory of God.
Yeah. And
What could be simpler than that? And, okay, and I want to comment on that. The simpler thing. If the connotation in someone's mind is that simpler is like stupid or dumb,
Mhm.
that's not what we mean.
no, not at all.
We mean quit making your life complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be, because your complicated perspective of life is causing your pain.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Yeah, you're neglecting the freedom and the opportunity you have in Christ for the sake of complication, because it might be rooted in pride and arrogance, in a false idea of what reverence is supposed to look like, a believing the lie of the enemy, a mixture of all of the above, right? And in the midst of that complication, you're neglecting the freedom and the opportunity that you have to live a life for the glory
Yep.
of God and to rest as His child.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So my hope for so many Christians that get caught up in those lies and get caught up in all those things is that you will seek Christ. And I've met so many people, Micah, you brought up recently as well, where like when an idea comes against maybe a theological bend that they grew up with or something, they become really defensive, and they begin to question like salvation, and they begin to question so many things instead of coming to Christ and returning to Him. And so in the midst of those times where you feel like your perspective is being twisted and shaped and changed, lay down the defenses and turn to Christ.
Mhm.
And if it's something that is not of Him, I believe that His Holy Spirit will point those things out if you're earnestly coming to Him. And if it is of Him, stop fighting.
Yeah.
and rest in Him.
Yeah.
Like truly, there's joy, there's happiness, there's peace, there's contentment in light of life's circumstances. There is belonging, there is purpose,
Yep.
and there is no fear. Like there's rest, right? So enjoy Christ, rest in Christ, be in Him. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Simpler community and for checking it out. Subscribe where you can, leave comments where you can. There's all of our social medias are tagged down in the show notes below. Check it out. Give us a follow. Tell Steven you love him. We're so happy we can come out to the Garden Audio. He had an update that was like 4 years old that he did. So he had to redo a lot of the stuff in our templates. And so he spent a lot of time doing that and made it sound real nice. And so let him know how much you enjoy the podcast. And hey, as always, keep Christ as core. What could be simpler than that? Catch y'all next week.